the FTC will now have to go to court or go before the federal court here in D.C. and answer for its refusal to turn over one record to Judicial Watch about this unprecedented targeting of Elon Musk and Twitter. Now, part of the corruption by the Biden administration, and we talked about the weaponization of federal agencies to target opponents of Biden, is the abuse, and I talked about this a little bit last week, of Elon Musk, who is being targeted by multiple Biden agencies, in my view, for retaliation over his efforts to bring free speech to Twitter. Now, the left believes that the social media platforms are theirs to run, and that if you engage in speech they don't like, you should be deleted, censored, deplatformed, canceled, you name it. For instance, the left is furious with Biden working with journalists to expose the so-called Twitter files, which are documents by Twitter that show collusion by Twitter and other big tech companies with government agencies to censor American citizens by the millions. They not only expose collusion with Twitter, but like Facebook and Google and YouTube, which have a much broader reach in terms of impact on American citizens than even Twitter does. And the left is furious at that. They had journalists who have been looking into that Twitter files, and they were testifying to Jordan's committee last week on this weaponization, and the left and their media allies were attacking the journalists for doing journalism on this government corruption and censorship. But as soon as Elon Musk, who is to be commended for disclosing this corruption by his corporation, certainly the prior leadership, it's extraordinary, it's never been done before, the left started attacking him. And one of the first things Joe Biden said after the November elections, he came out to the podium and directed that he thought that Musk needs to be the subject of a national security review. So he's been personally targeted by Joe Biden. And Jim Jordan's committee exposed how the Federal Trade Commission, we know generally that the Federal Trade Commission has been harassing Musk, but Jordan got details of the harassment, which is quite extraordinary, showing that they were asking for records about his communications with journalists. They wanted essentially all records about Musk himself, anything he wrote or caused to be sent out, complete and vicious harassment over supposedly a consent decree regarding the privacy of Twitter users. So they were just using that consent decree as leverage to harass Twitter on everything because Musk was running it and they don't like what Musk was doing. Now, Judicial Watch had seen that the FTC was up to no good, and we had filed a Freedom of Information Act request back in November for records and communications maintained by Lina Khan, chairperson, U.S. Federal Trade Commission, including memoranda, reports, briefings, handwritten notes, email communications, email chains, and email attachments, and other forms or records or communications exchanged regarding or referring to Mr. Elon Musk, CEO, Twitter, or the company Twitter with the below named individuals. And then we list the other commissioners. So we wanted to know the political involvement in this FTC operation. Now, the Federal Trade Commission under this Lina Khan is notoriously corruptly run. She's essentially turned it into a one-woman show, running the staff as if they're her own personal political operatives. So when they target Twitter, it's at the behest of this Biden appointee. Now, of course, the FTC, which is so concerned about enforcing the rule of law against Elon Musk and Twitter, refuses to follow the rule of law when it comes to FOIA and Judicial Watch. So we were forced to sue the other day for these records under the Freedom of Information Act. So this is the wonderful thing about that law. That means the FTC will now have to go to court or go before the federal court here in D.C. and answer for its refusal to turn over one record to Judicial Watch about this unprecedented targeting of Elon Musk and Twitter. And as we said earlier, as I described earlier, The Federal Trade Commission document demands to Twitter obtained by the House Judiciary Committee show onerous requests for all documents about Elon Musk and documents concerning Twitter's work with journalists to disclose to the public the details about the government's and Twitter's censorship of American citizens. A House report entitled The Weaponization of the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, an agency's overreach to harass Elon Musk's Twitter, details Twitter allowed journalists, as part of their reporting on government censorship by proxy, to review internal communications and correspondence between Twitter employees and federal agencies, including the FBI. The FTC's first demand in its letter sent after the initial installment of the Twitter files did not concern what private user information may have been at risk. Instead, the FTC demanded that Twitter identify all journalists and other members of the media to whom Twitter had granted access to since Musk bought the company. The FTC even named some of the specific journalists with whom Twitter has engaged on the Twitter files. The FTC also demanded to know any other members of the media to whom you have granted any type of access to the company's internal communications for any reason whatsoever. So this is obviously overreach and abuse and harassment. On November 10th, the FTC sent 2 demand letters asking for voluminous information about Twitter's personnel actions, terminations or resignations, and about the Twitter Blue service. Now, what is Twitter Blue? Essentially, you can, under Musk, he instituted this new program that you can pay Musk, I think, or Twitter $8 a month and you get the blue check mark. It used to be in order to get the blue check mark, you had to show that you were important enough to get it. Now, if you pay $8 a month, you can get it. For whatever reason, the left didn't like that, mainly because I think left media journalists who had blue check marks thought the value of the check mark became diminished by Musk making it available to regular Americans. Some of the FTC's demands about Twitter Blue, such as when the service was first conceived, appear to serve little purpose other than to pile on the already burdensome requests. One such demand came just 2 days after Twitter reactivated President Trump's account. In this letter, the FTC demanded nearly 20 additional categories of information about Twitter Blue. Now, the FTC under Biden is obviously targeting Twitter, abusing power to retaliate against Musk for supporting free speech on Twitter. And now, as this Judicial Watch federal FOIA lawsuit shows, the FTC is trying to cover up this attempt to silence and punish Elon Musk. So I'm convinced that Musk's work on Twitter needs to be protected because if he fails and he's pushed back and from protecting free speech on Twitter, we'll be significantly hurt as a nation in terms of the ability to communicate freely online about issues of public import. For instance, Twitter, there was another set of Twitter files that just came out as I'm a little bit before I'm making this report to you, detailing how there was this private project that was similar to another private project that was run by these entities in Stanford, University of Washington, Graphica and such, all funded by the government to target election integrity. So there was this other project called the Virality Project. Virality, I guess that's a word. Again, with these left-wing groups that were working with the CDC to target information about COVID for censorship. And they were telling Twitter and the other big tech companies that true information about vaccine adverse events, true information about vaccine passports, and true information generally that cause vaccine hesitancy should be treated as disinformation and censored and taken down. So if it got in the way of their particular agenda related to COVID and vaccines, whether it was true or not, they wanted it censored. Of course, we've known that's been the case. I know I've been personally censored by Twitter using that type of analysis. But how many others have been? All at the behest of the government through this government front, this so-called private entity that receives government funding and partners with the government to target American citizens and to decimate their free speech rights and First Amendment protections. And so that's why they hate Elon Musk, because he's exposing this corruption that blow out of the water the idea that the CDC, the Department of Homeland Security, the Biden White House can be trusted to defer and protect and respect our First Amendment rights. So this is why this lawsuit that Judicial Watch filed against the FTC is so important, because the FTC is abusing its authority to harass Twitter and Elon Musk for doing the right thing. So in many ways, Elon Musk is a kind of a corporate whistleblower, and he doesn't need to be doing this. He has more money than Midas, and yet he's putting himself out there to do this, to expose this corruption. He could buy Twitter and just keep it all quiet, do what he wants business-wise, and no one would be the wiser. But because he sees himself as a good citizen and he believes that freedom of information is essential to the future of humanity, he's been pushing this information out quite happily. And for that, he's being targeted by the petty tyrants at the Biden Federal Trade Commission, the Biden White House, and other agencies. And we're going to expose this corruption, and in doing so, we hope stop it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.